Welcome to the latest edition of the Dynamic Political Centrism podcast, hosted by Alan Steinberg, produced by Dr. Yonatan Yoni Yaris the Doc, our special guest, Avi Richler, Senior Advisor to Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican candidate for Governor of New Jersey.
Good evening and welcome to this episode of Dynamic Political Centrism. I am the host of the podcast, Dynamic Political Centrism, and our producer is with us as always, giving us excellent quality and excellent background in the recording, Yonatan Yaris, known as affectionately and respectfully as the Doc, as he has a doctor of education and quite competency he brings to our scene every week. We have a very special guest tonight, and I want to give a brief introduction to set the stage as to how significant this is. Of all the elections, and everyone who knows me is a political junkie, my favorite election is the New Jersey gubernatorial. There's a reason for that. If you live in New Jersey, you are living in the state of political junkyism, and I use that in a humorous but rather complimentary way, because in New Jersey, we have a significant election every year. The first year is the presidential race, and the whole nation's eyes are focused on the presidency and what it can mean for the world. The second year is the gubernatorial year, and the New Jersey governor's race is my favorite because in New Jersey, you get credit just for showing up, as Woody Allen would say. The gubernatorial race involves the most powerful governor in the nation because he has no rivals. He's the only elected official, along with his lieutenant governor selection. And New Jersey is a very complex web of a state, and its elections are very, very complicated, involving deep analysis. I'll get back to that analysis in a second. The third year is normally a congressional election year, which sometimes will include a U.S. Senate seat. And then the fourth year is a legislative election year, and the whole cycle starts again. Elections today are a much more complex affair and much more analyzed before and afterwards. And the role of the analyst as consultant to the candidate is critical for a candidate's success. And part of that in New Jersey is the Jewish vote, because in New Jersey, we have the fourth largest Jewish population in the nation, largest being in New York, and particularly New York City, then California, then New Jersey, and then Florida. Now, two of those states can be in doubt, Florida and New Jersey. California and New York, not so much. But you cannot win in New Jersey in either party unless you garner a significant share of the Jewish vote. And the Jewish vote involves a lot of analysis, both in terms of the factors that go into the election and also in terms of overall strategy and message. In this election, Jack Ciattarelli, who is the Republican candidate for governor, whom I have endorsed for governor of New Jersey, has an outstanding Jewish consultant in Avi Richler. Boy, I always make one mistake with new names. So I will say to Avi at the start of the show, my own, kapara, I won't get your name wrong again.
That's all right. It's Richler, actually.
Oh, okay.
I thought makes it easier.
That's three strikes and I'm out. Okay.
That's all right. You got 9 innings.
Yeah, I know, and I have no relievers, so I gotta go the full 9. I've got to be like Tom Seaver, okay? But Avi Richler is making history in New Jersey this fall because he is really there have been a number of people, myself included, who get involved in consulting candidates on the Jewish vote. But Avi is a real professional. It's the first time that we've had a gubernatorial candidate in Jack Ciattarelli who really has hired a full-time consultant. And there are a lot of factors that go into this election, and Avi will brief you on them. But without further ado, and I will get this right, Avi Richler. Did I get it right that time?
You did. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the introduction. If I might make one other correction, though.
Go ahead.
I was not hired as a consultant. I'm not paid by the campaign.
I wasn't implying you were, but
okay. But it is Jack and I, and we'll get into that, have a long-standing friendship, and I advise the campaign because it's something I passionately believe that New Jersey needs in our next governor. So
Well, that's as good a starting point as any. And with that, I'll have Avi Richler take it away, and he'll tell us the story about how he and Jack Ciattarelli became friends and compatriots in the game of politics. And he'll also get started with the recent trip to Israel by Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli. So, without any further ado, Avi Richler, go right ahead.
So where do you want me to start? You want me to start with Israel or
Start with how you met him.
how I met Jack?
Yes.
I've been involved with public service, with advocacy on behalf of issues within the Jewish community for as long as I've lived in New Jersey. I moved to New Jersey in 2007. Um, there are two things that I am extremely passionate about. Number one is Jewish education. I think it's so crucial to the future of the Jewish people. And number two, obviously, is Israel and its place in the future of the Jewish people. Both of those things are significant within our state. And both of those issues have been issues that have been at the forefront of the Jewish conversation in politics for as long as I've been around in New Jersey. Obviously, private school tuition with a growing private school uh, uh, student body, not just actually with the Jewish community, but I've worked alongside the Catholics as well, the Catholic schools, but advocating for increased funds, whether it's security funds or you know whatever funds, parity funds on nursing, on all sorts of all sorts of funds that might be available from state government to support Jewish private school education. And my personal passion is Jewish education. I have 7 kids in private school. I'm a father of 7 kids. And I know what the burden of private school tuition is to an average Jewish family. So I've always advocated to try to relieve that burden. And I think it's important, if I might digress for a moment, to understand that in New Jersey, as somebody who sends children to private schools, we pay 3 tuitions. We pay in our local property tax, we pay tuition for the public schools. Our income tax goes to is earmarked specifically to 7 school districts: Patterson, Newark, Atlantic City, Camden, etc. Trenton, I think. So we're paying those 2 tuitions for children to go to public schools in our local communities, for children to go to public school in the 7 uh, communities that are funded by the income tax, and then I'm paying private school tuition. So I think it's a little bit of an unfair burden. And we can talk about the merits and demerits of private school tuition ad nauseum. But that's something that I was passionate about. I was also passionate about the expansion of New Jersey-Israel relationships vis-a-vis business. To me, it's very difficult to hate somebody that you're in business with. It's very, I truly believe that the root support of the United States with Israel, not only because of shared values, but also is rooted in shared economic benefit for both countries. And so I've always seen an increase in New Jersey-Israel fiscal relationship, bilateral trade, as a mechanism for increasing support for the Jewish state. And so I always wanted to see that, and it's something that I always got involved. I got involved in other things within the political spectrum as well when necessary. Uh, you know, uh, Whether it was Israel related, mostly usually related to the Jewish community. Um, I met Phil Murphy a couple of years before he was elected to governor, and in a meeting in Morristown, New Jersey, and I asked him about his stance. I didn't know who he was. He was exploring a gubernatorial race, and I asked him what his stance was on private school education and Israel, and he gave me some good answers. However, once he became governor, we noticed that there wasn't an expansion of the New Jersey-Israel trade. I tried personally to advocate for that. We have here in New Jersey a New Jersey-Israel Commission that's tasked with expanding, amongst other things, but the business relationship between New Jersey and Israel. And we saw a regression. At the end of the Christie years, Chris Christie used to tout the fact that New Jersey did as much bilateral trade as Australia at $1.6 billion. We started to regress in that number. We started to lose that bilateral trade. I think it's also important to note that when you start to do a deep dive on the numbers, $1.6 billion is a lot of money. But New York does over $14 billion of bilateral trade, which means there's room to increase that relationship. And I started to get a little bit frustrated by what I was hearing, and I worked with the Murphy administration. There's a lot of really good people that I worked with in that administration on various different projects, people who I worked alongside. But I started to see the frustration, as I think a lot have, with the Murphy administration, in terms of they would tell you what you wanted to hear, but they wouldn't really follow through on implementing that. And the New Jersey Israel Commission was in particular an example of that, where it never got off the ground. There are no minutes from those years in terms of any meetings that they had. There wasn't anything being done, as well as obviously we know that the Democratic Party is beholden in New Jersey to the NJEA, and who is vehemently opposed to any sort of private school funds in any level, whether it's security dollars on even parity to public schools, nursing dollars, technology dollars, whatever it is. Whenever we try to advocate for at least parity, the biggest opposition to that was the NJEA. So in those two particular areas, other areas as well, I started to get frustrated. And early on in the Murphy administration, I decided that when he does run for re-election, I would look to see if there was a good candidate who could maybe unseat him and at the very least make my voice heard, because we live in a wonderful country that each individual can get involved in politics, can get involved in public policy, and actually make their voice heard if you work hard enough. And so I had a friend in the legislature, Chris Brown, a dear friend, who I was talking to one day. It was actually I was up in the State House. I was on the Senate floor, and we were talking. And I asked Chris, I'd seen Jack do well in the primary against Kim Codano. I'd liked his messaging then, and I asked him if he knew Jack, and he said he did. And Chris said, maybe I'd like to I was telling Chris about my frustrations, and he says, I'd like to introduce you to Jack. Word is he's going to run for governor against Phil Murphy. And so he invited me to his office in Atlantic City. Jack and I met, and I think we hit it off in that first meeting. A lot of what we talked about was very, very consistent. I think on message, it was a very unguarded meeting. Jack wasn't a candidate at the time, and it was just a really wide-ranging conversation on whether it's messaging, Jewish community, strategy, history, etc. And I found Jack to be a very, very enjoyable and engaging type of person. I feel we connected right away. And I asked him what his plans were in terms of outreach with the Jewish community. And he said at the time that he didn't have necessarily an outreach plan. And I said, I think I can help you there. And so, with my work in the Jewish community throughout the state of New Jersey, I felt I could introduce him to people that I think would be helpful should he decide to run, which obviously he did decide to run. And I got very involved in his first campaign, advising the campaign, introducing Jack to various leaders within the Jewish community. Now, it must be stated that I don't take any credit personally for it. I made introductions. I definitely sat with Jack a lot. We developed a strong friendship as well. Talked a lot. But Jack is the hardest working guy I've ever met. And he sells himself. He doesn't need anybody to sell him. You just got to put him in front of someone. And Jack has such a passion in his messaging and what he believes in, and he's not, I've met a lot of politicians in my life, and he's not that politician where he's just going to tell you something and he's not going to follow through. If he tells you something, or if he says he's going to learn about something, he's going to go all in and do a deep dive and learn about it. He's very curious, intellectually curious, follows up with people. Everybody knows that he'll follow up on text message or phone call. So I found that early on, we developed a relationship, and that friendship grew. In a few months before the election, in August of 2021, Jack and we went to Israel together during COVID. My wife and a small group of people, we went to Israel together, and it was an unbelievable experience. Tourists weren't really going to Israel at the time. It was the height of COVID. We got special permission to go, and again, it was a quick 3-day trip. Our goal at the time was, again, the expansion of the business relationship between New Jersey and Israel, laying the groundwork should Jack win. We know how 2021 turned out, and we can talk a little bit more in depth about what we did right within the Jewish community, what things we looked at back and said, okay, we have to do better. But from day one after the election, I told Jack that I would be 100% by his side should he decide to run again. It's just been such a wonderful journey. So that's a little bit about my history with Jack. Again, we just, as you mentioned, we returned from Israel about 10 days ago. We went back. The contrast was unbelievable. Obviously, now Israel's open to the public, but not just that. In 2021, it was very hard to get in front of people. People did not know who Jack was, and so it was the constant battle of just name recognition, especially overseas. And this trip, obviously, we worked really hard, but there were a lot more doors that opened up to us, and we were able to accomplish a lot more. There were a lot more businesses who were interested in meeting with us and hearing from us about what a relationship, specifically companies that are looking to make their jump to the United States, to move their headquarters to the United States, what that would look like in the Ciattarelli administration, what the business element of that. So it was a great trip, and it's just been such a joy to be a voice as part of the team. Jack's commitment to the Jewish community is very sincere. And like I said, I don't, it's not like I have to do much. Jack does so much on his own, and he's such a dynamic candidate on his own. And so it's just such an honor to be able to be a part of those conversations.
Well, you've put your finger on the heightened significance of the New Jersey Israel Commission. I would just add one thing. It is not just, and this is something I know you're very conscious of, it's not just a trade relationship. At the time the Israel Commission was established, it was a sister state relationship.
Correct. So it was
a recognition. It was a recognition that there was a commonality between New Jersey and Israel, not just in terms of the ethnicity of the immigrants and the relationship. It was that we had a common mission for the betterment of both. And what has bothered me, and I think that Jack will be, and you will be a big assistant in this regard. I think throughout the crisis, ever since October 7 of 2023, there has been a failure in terms of the media. There has been a failure in terms of the political community to recognize that this is a sister state relationship. So when Mikey Sherrill really trashed the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, you have a right to criticize. I have criticized him at times also, but in my column, I have advocated for his wartime leadership. There's been no question in my mind of that. So when someone like Mikey Sherrill refers to Bibi Netanyahu as a bad actor, that shows to me contempt for the sister state relationship. I just wanted to make that point.
And not only that, she went to Gaza, or she went to the border of Gaza to criticize Israel's response, humanitarian response. And we're friends. What are friends but to stand by each other in times of need? We don't. When somebody is in crisis, they don't expect their friends to come and criticize them or highlight any potential. And in this case, it's not even real, but any flaw they might have. And again, Israel, like any country in the world, has its own flaws. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but certainly it's the most moral army clearly within the Middle East, probably around the whole world. What Israel does to protect lives. So to just fly over there just to criticize, not to call for the release of the hostages, not to call for a ceasefire on the side that actually started this war on Hamas, but rather to just criticize Israel. During crisis, you learn who your friends are, and she clearly, whether it's because it's a political calculation and she's responding to the pressure on the left, on the radical left, or whether she genuinely does not like the state of Israel. I don't know. I've never met Mikey Sherrill. I was invited to several meetings with her, and I've even before she was a candidate, it just never worked out for me to meet with her, and I don't feel the need to meet and have those discussions because I don't think we see eye to eye on a lot of issues. But I do want to back up a little bit about the New Jersey Israel Commission. You're right in saying that it's not just an economic commission. It was also created, Tom Kay created it to expand the cultural relationship between the New Jersey and Israel, as well as the academic relationship. I use the economic relationship because I understand that the impact of the economic relationship is oversized compared to the academic or cultural relationship. While I support both of those as well, I think we need to, because Israel, we will develop a better advocacy for Israel when we have cultural and academic relationships. The economic relationship also helps us here in New Jersey. Bilateral trade is not one way. We're not just looking to support Israel. We're looking for Israeli companies, startup nation, with the most amount of unicorn companies coming out of Israel and any per capita in any other country in the world. The innovation that's coming out, and Israeli companies are often, in order to access funding, to venture capital funding or various different investments, need to have U.S. headquarters. It used to be they would set up subsidiaries in the United States, but today the VCs and the various investment banks want to see U.S. headquarters. And so these companies are coming to the United States. They're not setting up shop in New Jersey where they can create jobs and economic benefits and grow our revenue as a state. We know we're the highest tax state in the country. There's so many things that Jack intends to do in terms of making this a more business-friendly state, but also to lower taxes. But we cannot just lower taxes by cutting services and things like that. We need to grow our revenue base. And we do that by attracting outside investments from other places. And by the way, Israel's not the only place. Israel can be a template. I mean, with the Abraham Accords, we now have the Emirates. The Saudis are looking to do a lot of business in the United States. There's massive, massive, massive opportunity for investment in New Jersey if New Jersey would be attractive. Right now, Israeli companies, we hear from them, are looking at places like Boston or Austin, Texas. But they all say that New Jersey's got everything that they're looking for: quality of life, good schools, large Jewish communities. The one thing we don't have is an attractive business environment to attract these companies. And so I use economic relationship between the New Jersey Israel commission and relationship because I think it can have the biggest impact on us as a state, on New Jersey as a state. And ultimately, that's what we're here to do. We're here to advocate to grow New Jersey and make it a better place to live, where seniors aren't fleeing the state because it's too expensive to live, where people can start a good life here in New Jersey. So there are so many opportunities, and that was the primary focus of our mission. Obviously, the secondary focus is to highlight what's going on in terms of anti-Semitism. We had the big controversy with the IRA bill in the legislature, with keep getting delayed by the Democrats, and they're pandering to the far left, defining extreme anti-Zionistic propaganda as anti-Semitic, which it is. It's rooted in anti-Semitism. We can have a discussion on that. And so obviously we wanted to highlight that. Wanted to highlight our support. In contrast to Mikey Sherrill, our support for the Jewish communities of the Gaza envelope, to support the hostages, to call for their release. So there were multiple secondary reasons for our trip, but the primary reason again was economic, to lay the groundwork for Ciattarelli administration and an expansion of the economic relationship between New Jersey and Israel.
Well, you've done that very well, and I think that after the election in November, you'll have an opportunity to do more. It'll be fascinating. I was thinking something last night, not so much in the Jewish vein, but this is something that nations may be calling upon New Jersey as to how they dealt with that. And that is the issue of what I think has been the most significant retail development of our generation, and that's the establishment of Amazon. Amazon has basically made malls obsolete. I used to go to malls. I'm an avid reader. I used to spend hours and a ton of money over at Barnes and Noble. You can't if you walk one step in my living room, you're going to run into some history book or political science or economic. And I could get all these products from in the past from Barnes and Noble, from Borders. I never go to those places. Well, Borders, I don't even think exists
Yeah,
anymore.
but Barnes and Noble's managed to transcend that.
Well, they have a nook. They have a
Yeah.
nook, is what they have. But it affects the economy in this regard. At the Meadowlands, I was in charge of orderly development as well as the environmental aspects. In terms of orderly development, the best thing for businesses to do nowadays in the various regions is to get into distribution centers, because that's where jobs are being created as a result of Amazon and as a result of this massive increase in both the wholesale and retail department. And this is going to happen in Israel. Israel's not a large country in population like the United States, but it's a country where you see technological and business barriers being broken all the time in a very positive way. And I think that one advantage that Jack Ciattarelli has, he may be the finest middle class business governor we've ever had. He's an amazing success story, what he did with the magazines. And he's the kind of guy that if you get a Netanyahu, for example, who it's often forgotten, but he was an excellent finance minister. He was the best finance minister Israel ever had. He's going to want to talk to a Jack Ciattarelli. Jack Ciattarelli is not going to just talk politics when he talks to an Israeli financial or business leader. As we say in Yiddish, he's going to talk tachlis with them. He's going to
and I think it speaks volumes of the fact that he met with us when we were over there in Israel. And Netanyahu doesn't just meet with candidates. He's the prime minister of Israel, but he took the time to meet with us and had a significant conversation with us, because I think he understands that what a partner New Jersey could potentially be with Israel. And given our large Jewish community here, our socioeconomic standing, we are a pretty wealthy state overall with business leaders who have the potential to be able to make those changes should the environment be right. So I think the prime minister understood that, and so he gave us time, which is, again, I think was a significant message that we can all agree Prime Minister Netanyahu is a pretty calculated guy. And he doesn't do things by, just because. So he understood.
Massive understatement. Go ahead.
Right. And I think, again, he understands that. I think he thinks that, Jack's going to win, which I strongly believe he will. And he understands that not only could he win, but that he could actually, that Jack's the type of guy that can actually make the changes that he talks about and will make the changes he talks about. And that could result in significant investment or bilateral trade expansion between New Jersey and Israel. And again, it's not to be ignored that, we look over the river in New York and there's a guy like Mandami who's leading in the polls to become the mayor of New York. I mean, think about the exodus of business from New York to New Jersey. Should he become mayor? In particular, Jewish businesses. We see a significant amount of Orthodox businesses popping up every day. And by the way, this is not unprecedented. During early Chris Christie administration, Chris Christie created I don't remember the name of the tax incentive, but a lot of businesses made their way over from New York
Grow New Jersey program he had.
The Grow New Jersey program. Yeah, there was I don't remember the particular name of the program that attracted a lot of people. But it was very significant, and a lot of businesses are still here in New Jersey today. In particular, you talk about distribution centers and warehouses and manufacturing that came over to New Jersey under that program. And I think under a business-friendly administration, from a leader who has the experience in small business, understands what Main Street business is, understands small business, we can see a new dawn in business growth in New Jersey. Again, my lane is the Jewish community, but not just the Jewish community. I think we can see this across the spectrum of communities. And a rising tide lifts all ships. I mean, we'll see that carry over to other communities who will look at best practices and say, "Wow, this is the way to grow and to become prosperous and to become a healthy state again, and not be the butt of so many jokes within the United States of New Jersey being the armpit of America and all the things we've heard all of them before, all those negative depictions of New Jersey. So that's I'm passionate about it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited what Jack could bring, and I'm excited for him to actually be governor, so we can see these changes being implemented.
Well, you talked very eloquently about the reputation of New Jersey. Where we really get the short end of the stick is in terms of cultural relations.
Yeah.
We have superb culture here. We have the Performing Arts Center. We have concerts at large and small levels that go on all the time. And I remember the beginning of the Whitman administration, I was very involved with the Jewish outreach of that administration. We had the Renana Symphonette that gave a concert up at the Performing Arts Center. We also invited their orchestra leaders. When we went to Israel, we went to Renana, which is where our office was, our economic development office was located. And it was people to people. And I think that New Jersey people are a cultured people. I say that in a very laudatory way. It's the people of Israel. People in Israel have a habit of going to concerts like no place in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you lived in Tel Aviv, my relatives lived in Ramat Gan. I still have relatives there, and I have relatives in Renana. It's a habit in Israel to go to concerts. It really is. I mean, it's as much a habit as it is for people. I go to opera a lot, but it's as much a habit as people going to New York Met games. I'm not saying that to be funny.
Right. And, you talk about culture. We also have a tremendous amount of diversity in this state.
Yes.
It opens up an opportunity for culture, and not only culture, but look, I'm a history junkie, if you will. The amount of history we have in this state is unreal. People are not willing, but it's rare to find that highlighted or advertised, or even in schools, they're not taking advantage of what we have here. You go to Israel, and there's just, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. When you go to Israel, there's the Israel Heritage Societies and all the cultural sites, all the historical sites. There's a massive investment within them. There's a true pride by Israelis within their history and their culture. We need to learn from
Israel
that.
Democracy Institute also.
But there are so many things that we need to learn from that, I think, here in New Jersey, because we have so much to be proud of. We talk about New Jersey being, the butt of jokes, or what do people know about New Jersey is that it looks like, they land in Newark Airport and they think that's what the entire Jersey looks like, or The Sopranos. That's what people talk about New Jersey. But New Jersey's got so much. Look, I live in South Jersey. I live in the Garden part of the Garden State, and it's beautiful out here. And I'll drive through Hamilton, especially in the spring or the early summer, and the farms are. It's such a gorgeous place. Or if you drive through the Pinelands, or you go down to Cape May, or you go up in North Jersey. I took my kids to a former mine there, where there's so much culture, there's so much history, there's so much to discover in our state, and so we need to focus on that. We need to get our children to be proud of being in New Jersey, because then they're going to want to stay here. And it's not something that happens overnight. It obviously takes a generation of change. But we can start that now. We can and really grow that, and we can see that change develop in the next 5 and 10 years, where children grow up with a strong pride in who they have and what we have here in New Jersey, and it's truly a great state. It really, really is a great state to live in, to do business in, to do, we can make it better, but it truly is a great place to be. It's just we have our flaws that need fixing. And I feel like I truly feel like Jack is the type of guy that can make it happen.
Well, I'll tell you what's an essential area of cooperation, and then I'll go into with you, ask you some questions on the election itself. I think that cooperative research between Israel and the United States on climate change is absolutely essential. I went on a trip. I was invited by Saviva, which was the Israeli Ministry of the Environment, and at the time I was Region 2 EPA administrator, and climate change took up about 50% of every day. When I went over to Israel and saw the products that they had made, and recycling is going to be a key facet of climate change also. When I saw the kind of recycled products they had come up with, when I saw the way they had managed irrigation, I said,
Yeah,
this is the state of the art. I've
100%.
been all over the world. I haven't spent my entire life in the United States, and I was absolutely astounded with what I saw. So for the United States to have an all-encompassing climate research program, it's going to be essential to work with Israel, and I think that'll
And
be
I
something
would
to
I
pride.
would expand what you're saying, because it's not just climate. So, they say necessity is the mother of all invention, and what Israel has done, being a country that's in the desert, what they've done with desalination, what they've done with drip irrigation, they've come up with innovative ways to not only to save money, but to do it better than anybody else. And when California was going through their droughts, they turned to Israel to guide them on desalination.
Well, their desalination program is the envy of the world. I saw it.
Absolutely. And they've become a water exporter to other countries in the
Right.
region, which has makes them that much more stronger in any, there's the consensus that the next war, God forbid, in Israel is going to be a war over water, but no longer, for years that was the consensus, but no longer. I mean, Israel has become a water exporter, which makes them stronger in the region. But I talk about being in an agricultural part of New Jersey. We do a tremendous amount of agriculture here in New Jersey. We have this beautiful farms down here. They can truly benefit from the technology that's coming out of Israel. And not only that, on the flip side, we can start exporting our products to Israel. Our agricultural products, we can become an exporter. It's just another region we can be exporting to. I would also say so when we talk about collaborative, there's a holistic approach, because we have, down here in South Jersey, we have Rowan University, which is very much focused on life sciences. We have Rutgers University, which has a lot of research capabilities. I mean, in medical research, again, is the technology that's coming out of Israel, the innovative ideas that are coming out of Israel. I do believe in areas of green technology. We met with a company 4 years ago. It was brilliant technology where they, wireless. It was a wireless charging for trucks and bus batteries at bus stops. We imagine New Jersey Transit being totally revamped to be all a green technology with cutting edge recharging availability. Besides the fact that this potentially can save money down the line. Again, obviously these technologies have to be explored and the companies have to be vetted and all that stuff. But there's so much we can be doing together. We have, talk about research and development on medication. We have such a diverse population, which lends itself to better trials because of our diversity and when it comes to medication. So yes, the collaboration on environmental issues, but across the spectrum of industries, we are a leading potential partner. And again, I would expand it beyond Israel. you see a lot of innovation investment in the Emirates that part of the world. That's they're putting a lot of money into the investments in technology and research and development and all these things. And the Abraham Accords opened up this opportunity where everyone wants to collaborate to make this world a better place. It's messianic if you think about it. It's what the prophets predicted, right? We're going to beat our swords into plowshares, and we're going to not study war no more, but we'll study medicine. Today we live in an era when there are the least amount of people in the world dying of hunger, or the least amount of people dying from disease. Now, are we there yet? Absolutely not. We still have hunger and we still have disease and we still have, but the longevity and there are actually, and if you look in history, there are the least amount of people dying in war today than ever before. And so we just need to keep that ball rolling, and we do it by conversations, by learning about each other, by going over there, them coming over. Somebody asked me, why did Jack go as a candidate to Israel? So because these conversations don't have to start when you're in the governor's mansion. They start when you're in Trenton. They start prior. You develop relationships prior, and you lay the groundwork prior. And then when you are in a position of leadership, you can get things going a lot quicker because you laid the groundwork. And I think that's really what I'm passionate about, being part of the Ciattarelli team to be able to accomplish.
I'm looking forward to one other thing also that is more significant than would appear at first glance. One of the days I'll never forget, I've been to Israel 18 times. One of the days I'll never forget was the day I went to the national water carrier and I saw the protection of Israeli water sources. But there was another thing. We had an excellent guide, someone from Saviva, and also someone from the Department of the Israeli Minister of the Interior. And they told us one thing. They said, well, they told us more than one thing, but this was something that stuck in my mind forever. They said that Israel is more efficient than any other nation, and this is indisputable, about how to use water in the desert. But then they said that water for agriculture is one of the most inefficient uses of water you can find. So what Israel learned how to do is make it more efficient.
Right,
Whatever
the drip
water they
irrigation
had,
system.
they would do so efficiently. And I think that what Jack Ciattarelli can teach Israel is another thing. Jack is a scholar of of New Jersey history. Jack can talk to Israelis and discuss with them how our constitutional system works. Israel is always having new elections. Israel has a system which unfortunately lends itself to conflict in a lot of ways because of the proportional representation aspect of the Israeli government. And Jack will be able to explain the politics of the state of Israel as well. I can't wait. I think he's going to be
So,
a
Alan,
superb.
it's interesting you mentioned that, because I don't think that's the role of a governor of New Jersey, to lecture the Israeli people on how
I'm
to,
not saying lecture.
or even model.
I'm
What
not
we
saying
need to do is
lecture,
focus on
but
New
he
Jersey.
can explain. But I think that what nations have often done, Churchill did this with Roosevelt, Eisenhower did this in terms of international leaders. They would. I remember one time the saying was that Chaim Weizmann, Harry Truman says, "What is this country of yours? You're always having these internal, disputes." And he said to Harry Truman, "You are the president of 140 million
Yeah.
people.
So
I am the president of the 10 million of the time I think it was
whatever,
2
3
million,
million
2
presidents.
million presidents.
Yeah, I
That's
think it was
important.
Golda Meir I think it was Golda Meir who's credited with saying that. But either way, the
No, it was
story
Truman.
works.
It
Uh,
was Truman
uh,
because at the time I first heard this, Golda was foreign minister. She had not yet become prime minister.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I first heard this during the Eichmann trial. My family was getting the Jerusalem Post every day. The Eichmann trial had an impact on
Right.
people because of there's a recounting of, and that was the thing. We were sitting in a store one day with a man who'd been to Israel, and he talked about this. I never forgot it. But no, I'm not saying that he should impress upon people. Jack Ciattarelli's not trying to make a Republican or a Democrat out of an Israeli leader. But there are issues where it involves dealing with your neighbors. It involves dealing with the Arab peoples.
Yeah,
And
but
I think it's
and it's
important to
interesting you
have that
mentioned
kind of
that.
relationship.
Because I had a hard time when a few years ago there was a big controversy in Israel about the Western Wall Plaza, the egalitarian place in the Western Wall Plaza, and I don't
I
want to
was
get
there
into
when that happened.
but
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the details. But Phil Murphy weighed in on that, and I actually found that to be very distasteful because it's not a job of a New Jersey governor to weigh in on domestic policy in another country or even another state, really. The governor's job is to focus on his state and to make it the best state it could possibly be. So I think you and I might be in a little bit of a disagreement here in terms of, so while I think the best way to change somebody else is just to model a great system. And when you model a great system, people inevitably learn about that. I mean, isn't that the idea of the Torah, right? The Jewish people, we don't proselytize. We
Well,
we
no,
live
I'm
a
not
life.
looking to proselytize. It's
Right?
lessening
We
the
live a
difference.
we're meant to live a light and be a light unto the nations, to live a life of morality and moral clarity. And people are meant to see that, which is, by the way, why God put us in the land of Israel in the first place, because it's in this crossroads of civilization. People were meant to travel through Israel, see a moral society at work, and then bring those ideas back home with them to their own home countries. So I think the best thing for a governor in New Jersey would be to, and this is, if I was asked, this is how what I would advise any governor is just make your state the best, make your state the envy. People will see, and they will learn from those ways. And I think that's important to remember.
But
Again,
that's already going on. I'll tell you why I say that. I became very familiar with the IDI, Israel Democracy Institute, and its prime sponsor was Bernie Marcus of Home Depot.
yeah,
And I
blessed
went
memory.
to some of their events. You have scholars in Israel of political science who are studying the American constitutional system.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. They're interested maybe in adopting some of the institutions we have here. The Israeli court system, it tends to be something of a left wing court, but I'm not out. No one's out to change the ideology of the court. But in terms of the term of court members, issues like that, people will learn from each other's society. Jack will not be there to proselytize, but he will be there to explain how our system works because our system is the envy of the world.
I'll leave it up to the Israeli people to see what they want to, to see a good system and then hopefully adopt it. But again, I stand by the idea that our governor should be focused on our state, and I think Jack will be 100% focused on our state and how to make our state a better state to live in, a better state to do business in, a safer state to live in, a more prosperous state, because everybody will gain that way.
I don't think there's any question about that. And I think again that the two countries will walk hand in hand as has been the history of the American Israel alliance. Let's talk about the election.
Yes.
Election night, wherever I don't know exactly. We're probably going to have our own show election night. I may be going over to Ciattarelli headquarters for part of it. What are you going to be looking for in terms of early returns in New Jersey that'll give you some ideas to particularly how the Jewish community is going?
It's a great question. Again, my lane is the Jewish community. That's, I stay in my lane. I think
Right.
there's a great team. Jack has assembled an unbelievable team, and I'm honored to work alongside them. And obviously, each person on the team has their specific area of expertise. My job is to focus on messaging within the Jewish community. I think even prior to election night, I mean, obviously registration, voter registration in the Jewish areas. We have the Jewish community is a unique community. We vote at one of the highest rates of any ethnic, if you will, or any minority, whatever you want to label the Jewish community as. We are probably, I would say, not one of the highest rate, the highest rate in terms of our voter engagement. And particularly in the Orthodox community since the last election has grown in Ocean County, but in other places as well, in areas like Passaic and Cherry Hill and in Teaneck has grown significantly over the past 4 years, and not always has voter registration kept up with that. So early on, prior to even election, I'm going to look, obviously work on and look at how we're doing in terms of voter registration, because we know also, especially with how crucial this election is, I would say that 9 out of 10 Orthodox voters who are going to be registering to vote in this election are going to be Jack Ciattarelli voters. I'm comfortable saying that. And so when we see an increase in registration, that just means another vote in obviously we got to get them out to the polls and we got to encourage them to vote. But so that's one indicator that I'll be looking at. In terms of election night itself, you know, we saw something interesting in the last go around in 4 years ago. Despite the fact that, say, in Lakewood, the VOD endorsed Phil Murphy, which, I understood that. He was a sitting governor. He said all the right things, even though he didn't do much for the community. But, the consensus was that Jack didn't have a chance, and Lakewood likes to be on the winning side of the elections. I don't begrudge them at all for that. I think they did what they needed to do. But despite the fact that leadership within Lakewood endorsed Phil Murphy, Jack still won about 77% of the vote within Lakewood. And that was because we had a very, very strong strategy of going to the grassroots, talking about the issues that matter to the Jewish community in Lakewood, in the Orthodox community. So we very much focused on messaging and going to the grassroots, going directly to the people, not being reliant on leadership. But what we did see was that despite the fact that we did 77% of the vote, we did not see massive turnout like, say, a Trump election, which brought out massive, massive, massive turnouts. A lot of people stayed home because they wanted to vote for Jack, but they also didn't want to go against leadership. And because we know a lot of times they'll vote in a block. And so people stayed home. And what we're hoping is to see a much bigger turnout this go around. We're hoping that the leadership in Lakewood this year endorses Jack. It's yet to be seen, but I definitely think there's a lot. He's not running against an incumbent. There's a lot more at stake, and we could talk about that in terms of, for example, the tuition dollars in the big beautiful bill that are available in this year's election. But we need a governor who's going to opt into those dollars in 2026. And a lot of Democratic governors have said that they will opt out. So there's a lot, and that's real. That's not just theoretical campaign promises. That's actually real money that's already allocated, but has to be tapped into. And other issues, Phil Murphy, for example, put a moratorium on early childhood credits, funding for early childhood credits. And Jack's committed to lifting that moratorium. So there's a lot of things at stake in this election that matter to the Jewish community. Anti-Semitism. We see what's going on at Rutgers University with the protests. And so turnout is going to be key, and that's what I'll be looking at as turnout within the Orthodox communities. And then the second thing I'll be looking at is there were a lot of centrist Jewish voters in unaffiliated or independents, maybe even registered Democrats who, say, for example, supported Josh Gottheimer in the primary, who were Murphy voters last go around. But because of the far left rhetoric, the rhetoric that's coming out of the far left, the anti-Israel rhetoric, etc., we know Mandami's endorsed Mike Yisrael. We know Mike Yisrael's endorsed Mandami. So people are afraid of that. So to see what type of carryover, if you will, or how many of those voters will come over to our side to Jack's campaign. So those are things I'll be looking at come election night.
Well, the 90% objective is achievable. I'm with you on that. Let me tell you why. In the 1997 election, of all the New Jersey elections up to this point, I think that was the most significant in terms of the Jewish vote. And in that election, I was involved in that area day and night. And there was David Twersky, may he rest in peace, was a very close friend of mine. He was the editor of the New Jersey Jewish News. He commissioned a pollster to do an exit poll in that election. The pollster of all people was John Zogby, who's an Arab.
Oh, yeah. But he does
but
good
his
polls.
polling was
Yeah.
respected at that time. Okay,
And right.
a little less respected now than it used to
I
be.
don't know. Is
But
he still doing his polls? I haven't seen his polls recently.
I, up until recently, he was, but he was the pollster we commissioned.
Yeah.
And we being well, not we as a campaign, it was the pollster that David Porsky commissioned. And the exit polls in that campaign showed 77% of the Orthodox had voted for Christy Whitman. As a matter of fact, she was honored by, this is a funny story. Rabbi Herson, may he rest in peace, was called me to complain about a week and a half before the election. I would always recognize that wonderful voice. Listen, Ellen. Hello, Ellen. Rabbi Herson here. And he told us how
He was an
frustrated he
amazing man.
was.
Rest in peace.
He wanted to get out there and run advertisements about how not vote for Christy Whitman, but how she was being honored by the Rabbinical College of America as their Woman of the Year. He wanted to put this out. He could do it in a non-political way. He said, Ellen, I keep calling the governor's office, and they keep telling me they're not planning any events after the election. So I called them up. This is one time Christy Whitman really gave me backing. I called up the governor's office. I said, you got to do this. This election is frightfully close. You got to do this. And they said, well, we're not scheduling after election events. I said, if you don't schedule this event, you're not going to have any after election events to schedule. So you bet. And they called Christy Whitman. She'd always given me the backing in terms of Jewish outreach. She said, no, Alan says to do it. Let's do it. And the turnout was phenomenal for that dinner. And Christy Whitman got up at that dinner and she said, I see that I got 77% of the Orthodox vote. Now, that was a marvelous thing for another reason. I'm not being critical of Whitman on this. She's not a person that grew up with a lot of exposure to the Orthodox community. But that election showed how the Orthodox community could flex very significant and worthwhile muscle. And particularly like in the education area, charter schools, measures like that, the Orthodox community has the voice that goes beyond just sectarian issues. So I think you're going to get that 90%.
Right.
I
And I
think
think,
that the war over there has really heightened that likelihood.
but I'll tell you something else that I find, that contrast with Christy Whitman. So Christy Whitman, you're saying, so she showed up at one dinner and made some campaign promises, and she got the massive amount of votes in the Orthodox community. Jack's been in and around the Orthodox community, and not only the Orthodox, but the Jewish community in New Jersey for 8 years now. It
No
wasn't.
question.
It wasn't just, and this is something that, again, why I like the guy so much, and why we've become such good friends is because I remember right after, maybe it was a week after the election, after he conceded the election, we had a conversation, and he says, Avi, when are we going back to Lakewood? I want to go back and thank the voters in Lakewood for coming out. In other words, and we went back to the same businesses that he went to on the campaign trail, the same pizza store, the same print shop, etc. And he went in and he says, listen, I'm just here to shake your hand and say thank you for your support and for your love and for your for your welcoming me into your community. And he kept coming back, and it wasn't campaigning; it was sincere. It is sincere. So Jack has spent probably more time than anyone I could imagine in the Jewish community, in the Orthodox community.
There's no comparison.
There's no comparison, and so it's in this case. I think it's sincere. It's not. I think it is sincere. Jack is very, very sincere in his love and devotion for for the Jewish community. He's learned so much about the Jewish community, and I think the Jewish community recognizes that, and that's why they're going to come out. Not just because he stands there and makes a campaign promise, but because when he stands there and makes a campaign promise, they know that it's real. It's not just he's not just showing up election time, and then Mikey Sherrill will come to Lakewood. I'm sure she'll, if she doesn't, then I don't know who's advising her campaign, but I'm sure she'll come to Lakewood at some point, and she'll make some, she'll smile at here and she'll go there and she'll make some campaign promises, but we know it's fake because it's the first time she's ever been there, and she'll, it's part of the, she's got to check a box. But when Jack shows up in the Jewish community, we know it's sincere.
Jack is a Hamish guy.
Absolutely.
And that relates very well to the Jewish community. And I will say this. I joke with him. I said to him, Jack, I understand you're taking a new name, Rav Yaakov Ciattarelli. And he said, yeah, oh, absolutely. He thought I was being serious at first. Well, it's been a delight to have you on our show.
Thank you.
We hope you'll come back. We hope.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's like jury duty where you do it once every 5 years. But no, it's been fun, and I
I'd
would
like you to come back.
I would very much like to come back, Alan. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I mean, I enjoy the conversations because you obviously have a tremendous amount of knowledge in not just the
But
political
you and I
affairs.
are having fruitful dialogue. And,
Yeah,
and this is
absolutely.
what I'm saying. Even if there's an area we disagree, we both strive for common ground. That's why I enjoyed having you on the show tonight.
Yeah, and
So if
again,
you won't come back on the show, I'm going to send the police out after you.
it's intellectually stimulating. So I do hope I can come on again, and I thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, over the past few weeks, and definitely been a pleasure to be here on this show. And I
I
look
want to
forward to
ask you
watching.
something. If I offer to take you to a Mets game, will you go with me?
Well, it depends who they're playing.
All right, if you got the Nationals, you're good.
I've actually I've been to a City Field. I've been to a Mets game. I've been to both the old City Field and the new City Field. But yes, I would be delighted to.
You're going to have to listen to me give the history of the Brooklyn Dodgers because I'm a Brooklyn Dodger history obsessive.
So listen, you and me have something in common. I grew up in Montreal. I grew up as a big Expos fan.
Yep.
We both mourn the loss of our team in our home cities.
I mourn the loss of Park Jarry, as they used to call it.
Well, I never got to go to Jarry Park because it was before my day. But I grew up fondly in the seats of Olympic
Andre
Stadium.
Dawson.
Yeah, the Grand Orange as they called him, and
He's a New York guy too.
yes, he did make it, as did Jackie
He made
Robinson.
it
But
as a
again,
magnificent Met.
yes,
I
but
told Jack Ciattarelli the only thing I don't love about him is he roots for the Yankees, and he just laughs.
you and I have this. We feel the same way about the Yankees. For me, the Yankees were always the team that stole away any player that did well for the Expos. Anytime somebody did well, Boston or New York would come and just throw a boatload of money at him. There's no
Well,
way.
rooting for the Yankees is like rooting for U.S. Steel. That's the way I. One show I want to. Well, I'll talk to Yoni about this after the show. We're going to be doing a pre-election show. I think it's going to be essential for us to have you on not only that show but others. I really want to get you for the pre-election show because I think at that point you'll have more of a fix on how the Jewish community is really going to be important. I think the Cheryl campaign is realizing that the Jewish community is going in a different way. They're incredibly arrogant. I think they want to see if they can win without the Jewish vote, and if that happened, that's a bad omen
Well,
for us.
I think I agree with you. I think I get the sense that they didn't court the Jewish vote very strongly, and I'm not just talking about the Orthodox vote, but the Jewish vote in the primary either. I think they conceded that Josh Gottheimer had the inside lane on that as well.
They did.
And I think there's a sense that, hey, we won it without the Jewish vote in the primary, and so we can do that as well in the general election, which they do that at their own peril. And I'm not here to advise the Cheryl campaign to spend any more time in the Jewish community. It makes my job a little more difficult. But you know, the Jewish community is like any other community in New Jersey. We started the show. We care about safety and security and of our families. We care about economic opportunity. We care about being able to just being left alone to live our lives as Jews in this wonderful state. We're New Jerseyans. We're Americans, and we care about the things that everybody else cares about. And so it's not a Jewish issue per se. Of course, we have our particular issues that we care about, but I think everybody in this state is looking at New Jersey and saying, "Hey, am I better off than I was 8 years ago?"
Well,
Prior
they
to
can take the Reagan line. Are you better off?
Exactly. That's what Ronald Reagan asked. And I think if we ask ourselves today, are we better off? Is New Jersey in a better?
And Reagan is beloved in Israel.
If you watch New Jersey's budget that has grown by 70% in 8 years to close to $60 billion, that's not sustainable. And so we look at these things
It's
and
a
we say,
prescription for bankruptcy is what it is.
it is. And that's why we need, Jack always says, hey, I'm an MBA CPA. I know numbers and I know how to to turn this state around. And I do believe that. And again, he's a brilliant guy as well. It's you talk to him and he understands the issues. And if he doesn't understand them, he's going to learn them till he very well knows them better
He is
than
a
anybody
very
else.
good quick study.
Absolutely.
Very good.
And
Well,
so
that's it for the show tonight, but you're coming back.
all right. All right.
You know,
Well, thanks for having me.
I exacted that promise out of you. This has been a marvelous show. I thank our producer, as always, Yoni Yari's Doc, as we call him, because we're the only show that has a doc who is running our podcast, merging the scientific and educational worlds. Thank you, Doc, for another outstanding presentation. And again, Avi, we're gonna be praying with you.
Thank you. And
We
voting,
will.
hopefully, for us, for Jack.
And on election night, I hope we can sing the song Hu Elokeinu together.
All right. There we go.
It's my favorite Chabad niggin.
There we go.
That's it for our show. All of our listeners, I thank you for making this the great success that the show has been. And I say to you, in the words of Edward R. Murrow, good night and good luck. Take care, folks.
Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of Dynamic Political Centrism. Check back each week for our newest episodes, and you can catch past episodes online via YouTube and Spotify, and please subscribe to our Substack.